You're listening to the Mannered Podcast. Welcome back to Mannered, the place where we explore how humans bump into each other, brush past each other, and hopefully treat each other a little better along the way. Today's episode takes us to one of the great proving grounds of humanity, middle school, a wild habitat where confidence collides with confusion, friendships form at supersonic speed, and the lunchroom becomes a miniature United Nations with, is that pizza? So there's a saying I've heard over the years, who you are in middle school is who you are the rest of your life. And the older I get, the more I wonder if there's a little secret truth tucked inside that. Because those early traits, the kindness, the curiosity, the stubborn streaks, the leadership sparks, the awkward ambitions, they tend to stick. They grow up with us. They get mortgages. They buy minivans, run companies, and show up in meetings when we least expect it. So today I've brought in a real expert on the topic and one of my absolute favorite people in the entire world, my daughter, Hailey Rhodes, an 8th grader who's living the experiment in real time. We're going to talk about life in middle school today, the unwritten rules, the etiquette of surviving the group chat, the politics of the lunch table, and whether the core of who we really are starts taking shape at age 13. So let's step into the hallway, lockers clanging, sneakers squeaking, and find out if 8th grade really is the blueprint to the rest of our lives. Hailey, thank you so much for joining me on the show. When I first started this, I couldn't wait to have you on this because you're one of the sweetest human beings on the face of the planet. I'm excited to take a journey into the mind of a middle schooler here and see what we can learn about manners and etiquette. With that being said, take us there. Take us to middle school in this day and age. Describe what you're going through currently in middle school.
Well, middle school is very big, and it's a big transition from elementary school. There's a lot more people, new people, and a lot of teachers, and the curriculum gets harder. So it's hard making new friends, too, after you go from elementary school to middle school, because you don't know many people. So that's probably a really tough part of middle school.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. So what are some things you think as far as, manners are concerned? Is it helping you form friendships, the manners that you've been raised with, or are we raising you in such an old school way that it's maybe making you feel, alienated from other kids? Tell me about that.
I think that they're very important because especially when you're meeting new people, you want to look them in the eyes and listen to what they're saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Speaking of eye contact, that's one of the first things that comes up as kind of a negative for your generation is, a lot of people say that your generation lacks eye contact. We're going to maybe go into some of those things that might be creating that. But is that a fair concern? Do you feel like that's something a lot of people your age struggle with?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't look you in the eyes when you're talking, and it makes it difficult for conversations.
Yeah, I could see that. So what do you think the reasons for that are?
I don't know. A lot of times kids use a lot of devices like phones, and that can also affect.
Yeah. So yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I think all of us sitting in here and then listening can imagine, the problems that screen time are creating with things like eye contact. The other thing, and we're kind of jumping ahead here, but the other thing that I think as far as technology that maybe plays a role in some, negative manners is, I call it the Alexa generation, where it's everything's on demand, right? And how we're, at your age, it's not new to you. It's just part of life. To a lot of us, it's new. So we can separate the two between how we're saying things like, Alexa, show me how to make this. Alexa, teach me how to do this. Alexa, call this person. It's very demand oriented in how we're talking. Do you think that that's shaping how communication is happening in middle school?
Well, I think when they use the Alexa, people get very demanding with it. And so they use that in the real world to everyone. They treat them like that. So they're very demanding to other people other than an Alexa.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And next week, I'm doing an episode on AI with an AI expert. What about AI? Have you experienced that kind of infiltrating your world, and has that affected manners in your opinion?
Yeah, I think people use it to fill in gaps that they don't know. Like they use it so much and then they start using it for like tests or essays that you have to do in class and then they cheat on that.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. Not just cell phones, but like all the social media
Mm-hmm.
too. It's really influencing the students and kids' brains. Like we talked about earlier, eye contact.
Yeah.
I think that is affecting it. And also even just listening to people and your attention span when people are talking is really affected by social media and screens.
I couldn't agree more. And then is there any other kind of technology out there that you feel like is, a harm to your future? Is it making things better?
A lot of teachers, they have you work on computers a lot, and that can get really tough because looking at a screen all day is really hard, especially on your eyes and your head. It gives you headaches and it can make it really difficult to concentrate on your work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, you're kind of a unique specimen because, we haven't raised you with a lot of those things and we've forbidden them. But, part of this show is for me and other, people out there to see, I don't want to do anything that's actually holding you back from your current generation's etiquette, because things that we're used to in our generation, your generation's going to form your own etiquette because ultimately etiquette and manners are something that are developed as kind of that cultural norm. Do you feel not having a lot of screen time or having things like Alexa, is that kind of holding you on the outside of communicating with friends and that sort of thing?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
Take me to the lunch table. What are some kind of conversations that you all have?
Well, there's a lot of different conversations we have, mostly about friends, I guess, like what's going on in school or in the classes or what's coming up in school, like the tests or the assignments.
Yeah. Do you any gossiping?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is gossip something that you got to be careful with?
Yeah, it is because many people take it differently when you're talking about gossip than other people that aren't with you get very upset about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And do you feel like in this day and age, I mean, you don't have a cell phone, but you do have your smartwatch, your Apple Watch. A lot of communication is happening through chat. Do you feel like it's harder to understand the tone when you're communicating through text? Have you already experienced some issues with text and that sort of thing?
Yeah, because when you're texting, you don't know how people are saying it or how it comes off. So that can really offend people when you're texting them.
Yeah, and I mean, your generation is primarily using text to communicate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like if you were able to conversate more, would that make things better?
I think it would because you can actually talk to the person and see how they're coming off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Back in my day, when I was growing up, I mean, we had a phone that was attached to the wall with a big cord, and we felt cool because we had the long cord that you could, walk like 15 feet away. And then they came out with the cordless phones. That was a really big day. But, it was, spending hours actually talking on the phone. Does that seem pretty bizarre to you nowadays?
A little bit, but kind of not because a lot of the kids use their cell phones and technology like all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some things you're into right now as far as, what's your favorite show you're watching?
Stranger Things.
Which is kind of a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is that a big deal?
Because for the longest time I couldn't watch it.
Yeah, and if we sound tired at all, it's because she has discovered Stranger Things for the first time, and it's been fun for me to rewatch some of those episodes with her. So we've been staying up maybe a little later than we should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were supposed to do this podcast earlier on a Saturday morning, but somebody slept in. So, that brings up a good segue here because, you being a fan of that show, it's based in the 80s, and I was born in 1981. So I relive a lot of that watching it, reminds me of being a kid and watching that show. For you, does it relate to your youth or do you feel like you're watching a different time period that doesn't relate to you at all?
I mean, some parts of it relate to me, like being a kid
Yeah.
without technology and all that stuff, but some of it can be like I don't understand all of it because it seems like it took place in a different time.
And it did.
Yeah.
It did take place in a different time. I mean, obviously I didn't have to battle monsters or anything like that growing up, but as far as like hopping on the bicycle and just pedaling to your heart's content on where you wanted to go and not being confined by a lot of technology and things like that. I miss that. And sometimes I really miss that for you and your generation to have some of that freedom. Because whereas it seems like things like cell phones and screen time, give you more freedom, in ways it kind of confines you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some ideas you have? Are there any things that you feel that you could personally kind of push and maybe help your generation do better?
Yeah, our generation, like even at school, there's a lot of trash being left around that people just don't care and
Mm-hmm.
they just throw it anywhere they want, leave it there. And I feel like our generation does a good job on like being empathetic for people and caring for others.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Yeah. And you bring up a good point. I mean, with your generation is also supposed to be, great stewards of the environment. Yeah, I know you do a lot for the environment and things. We're honorarily the trash family. That's what Hailey's little sister called us one day because we, walked through the neighborhood together and we got these like trash picker upper things from Costco, and it's really kind of fun. We walk around the neighborhood and pick up all the trash that we're finding. So is that something you feel like your generation could do a better job on, is like cleaning up litter and things like that?
Yeah, I think so. Our teachers, they kind of enforce that at our school. They try to make kids pick up their trash by like handing them trash picker uppers to
Mm-hmm.
pick up. It's like duty you have to do at school a
Yeah.
lot of times.
That's good. All right. Do you feel like your teachers are are they helping you all with things like etiquette? Do you feel like you're learning that at school, or do you feel like you're getting more of that from home?
I think I'm learning more of that from home or
Yeah.
maybe just being around other people too. You kind of can pick it up.
Mm-hmm. I get that. So speaking of learning manners at home, and sorry, I keep kind of dwelling on this because I really I want to understand kind of, sometimes if we're being unfair or not. And I want to know, is there anything that in the things that we care about as far as etiquette and manners go, is there anything you think that we're maybe a little too over the top on? Is there anything that we can ease up on?
I don't think so.
Really?
No.
Really? So we're just perfect parents.
Yeah.
Really? All
I
right.
think manners look different for everyone. Like my grandparents, they don't like it when you put your elbows on the table,
Yeah.
but some people don't care.
Yep.
But so it looks different for everyone.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what this whole show's about, is manners do look different for everyone depending on where you come from, how you were raised, what part of town you live in. I mean, it's these customs that become that etiquette, So there's certain things that might drive us crazy in my current generation, but we have to understand that you're forming your generational customs as well, which middle school and kind of what I wanted to get into the meat of is you're in this battleground where you're abiding by your parents and your grandparents' etiquette and rules and unwritten rules and all of these things. But you're also in the mix of pioneering the next generation. You're forming the etiquette of tomorrow. And what your generation chooses to accept as a social norm will be the norm, as an adult. So, it really goes back to the beginning of this episode where we discuss, is who we are as a 13-year-old who we are the rest of our life. And I think a lot of that goes into the fact that, yeah, it's, this is where you're in that proving ground of, forming all of the things that are acceptable with your current generation, and that will become become the norm someday. So it makes perfect sense to me. Moving on to a new portion of that topic, and one of the most fun things about this is, we're going to get into some language. And I think to start this segment off, I thought it would be funny to note that my wife, when I started this podcast, she found these old books on etiquette written by Emily Post. The year is 1945. This book that I have written by Emily Post, who is, one of the leaders in etiquette and had a series of books. And I thought it was really funny as we're talking about language and phrases, and we'll get into, some fun discussions on the things that, this current middle school generation in their language, which I know everyone listening out there, it's just been a fun topic. But I thought it was really funny in looking at this Emily Post book, because there's just some really hilarious things from 1945. So Emily Post suggests things like, never say, I desire to purchase. Instead say, I should like to buy. Or she says, never say, I trust I am not trespassing, but rather say, I hope I am not in the way, unless trespassing on private property is actually meant. So, I'm going to actually list on, on the page some of these funny sayings, but this gives us an idea. I mean, that's from 1945 and how much that's progressed just to my generation. But now going to your generation, I think, Hailey, one of the funniest things ever is, I thought that my generation was on the cutting edge of, cool insider lingo with things like, that's tight, or that's dope, or, that's sick, which meant that was cool, and your generation completely blows my mind with some of the phrases and words that you've come up with that have literally, created new dictionaries that we need as parents to understand you all. And some of it we roll our eyes about. Take me into that new lingo. Is it something that is, part of your conversation? Do you avoid it? Are there certain words you like? Tell me about it.
Well, I think it's fun, but there should be limits on it, because some kids just start saying it during class, and it can really frustrate the teachers because it disrupts the learning environment, and it's very disruptful sometimes, but they can also be fun.
I mean, what's your current favorite new word that y'all are using?
6, 7.
Oh gosh, 6, 7. All right. Well, that brings up a good, let's dive into that a little bit. What is 6, 7? I know it's a big question out there. What is 6, 7?
Well, it comes from a song called 6, 7 from an artist named Skiller, and he started it, and then everyone just started, like, I don't know what you call it, making fun of it, but also just saying it as a funny word, and then it just started this whole thing, and no one really knows where it came from.
It really weirds me out, I'll be honest, when something catches fire like that and then we can't even describe why we say it, and it's everywhere. I mean, right now, my football team, the Chiefs, their record is 6, 7, and people are like, "Oh, the Chiefs sucked on purpose so they can be 6, 7 to be popular," which I don't believe, but it's literally everywhere. So I've been on a mission to try and track down. You're not really helping me get closer to the real, true origin. I mean, I guess it makes sense that it came from a song. What is it about that word that you like so much?
I don't know. It's just a funny thing that we say just to joke around, and then it just starts conversation. But
Hey, well, if it's starting conversations with your generation, that's a good thing. So we'll take that as a positive. What are some of the new words what's one that you don't care for that kind of irks you a little bit?
I'd say probably like skibbity.
That's actually one of my favorites that you guys use. It just sounds fun. Why skibbity? What is skibbity? What is that?
That's the thing. I just never really understood that one, and it just never really came to my attention. I don't know.
I mean, I feel like with your generation, new words are like forming by the minute too. It's like as soon as, we think we understand some of these new words, there's new ones popping up. So what's one of the newest ones that's hit the shelves?
Probably 6, 7, or like Sandy.
Cindy?
Yeah.
What's Cindy mean?
It just means like, or no, probably clock it.
Clock it?
That's the new. Yeah.
All right. What's clock it mean?
Like you could do it.
All
Like you
right.
got this.
All right.
Or
Okay.
good job, something
All right.
like
I
that.
like that one. That
Yeah.
one's positive. So, yeah, let's play a fun game here. I'm gonna say a word from my generation, and then you tell me your generational word for that. So,
Okay.
my generation, if something really like stunk, it's like, oh, that's lame.
Okay. Probably like I guess you would say sold or sold, but it has a different meaning. Probably like sold or you sold, but it has like a little bit of a different meaning. It means like you failed that.
Okay. All right. So, and how about so if something was super cool, you would be like, oh, that's tight.
Probably like that's peak or fire.
That's peak or fire. All right, that one's good. All right, and then if you were to just not worry about something, be like, ah, blow it off,
I don't really know. Like chill.
chill.
Yeah.
Okay, that one's pretty universal. Yeah,
Yeah.
we would say that too. So, so chill. We would also say like take a chill pill. Someone was like wigging out. So, do you have something for that?
No.
What about a greeting? Like, there's like, what's up, dude? You have anything like that?
Bro or la bro.
La bro?
Yeah.
What is la bro?
Just a thing you say, like, what's up? It's just like another add on for bro.
Okay. All right. So, what about something super cool? Is like, oh, that's the bomb.
Still like peak.
Okay, peak. What is it? I mean, what's Rizzler? I've heard Rizzler. What, isn't that something cool or something?
It's like when someone goes up to you and says something to get your attention a different way.
Okay.
Like random weird things. Like it could be sometimes people like say things that are Riz.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so moving on with that being known. So I knew when I was growing up, I didn't, even though, those were the words that I used within my own social circles and with my friends and things like that. I also knew there was a boundary in communicating with adults using those words. Do you feel like you and your generation have that same boundary, or do you feel like that boundary is being pushed a little bit?
I think so. I think there's a boundary because, like I mentioned earlier, you shouldn't say it to like teachers because it disrupts the learning environment, and also to adults. Sometimes it can be a little like not offensive, but not many people know the words
Yeah.
mean, so it could come off as like rude.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, it's super interesting, and promise me you'll keep me up to date on the meanings of these words,
Yeah.
I can at least know what the heck is being said. Moving on, and once again, kind of going back to the beginning of this, of who you are today, being that person for the rest of your life. Are you comfortable with that thought?
Yeah.
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 I agree. I mean, you got it going on, kid. I mean, you're seriously just such a sweet person, and you're so smart, and I just absolutely love you. Of course, you're my daughter, so everyone's like, of course he's gonna say that. I really do think you do a good job of balancing a lot of the things that I think that are some of the maybe the things that your generation is getting hammered on for negatively in regards to things on how we communicate with adults. I think you do a fantastic job with that. So I would be extremely happy if you're the same person in the future that you are today. So another thing I think about, taking myself back to middle school, apparel was always kind of like a big thing that always seemed like something that like separated the cool kids from the non-cool kids, and I never felt like a cool kid. But is apparel really as big for your generation as it was maybe for me?
I think it is.
Yeah.
I don't know how big it was for you, but I think kind of, yeah.
Yeah. What are the cool things right now to wear?
I don't know. They're very different. Weird, like socks and sandals.
Okay.
Or Crocs, for example.
So basically, you're saying I would have been cool if I grew up right now.
Yes.
So jean shorts are in, are they?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I would have totally been cool. Darn it.
Like
Well,
shorts.
really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some cool brands right now?
Lululemon
Ugh,
is
really?
a very popular brand. Yeah. Or Target.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. There's like a big mix, like the very expensive clothes and then also like Target.
Yeah. But I feel like your generation does a better job of not really judging as much as maybe my generation. It's like when I was growing up, you felt kind of judged if you didn't have the name brand stuff. It's like I'd wear stuff like Champion brand to school, and that was kind of not considered cool. But now I feel like your generation's more comfortable with kind of making whatever you have cool. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah. So give me an example if you wouldn't mind.
Well, there's like a lot of different brands. Everyone just wears anything and no one gets judged for it or anything like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, no, that's super interesting. What's something maybe on your wish list for if you were like, "Oh, if I had this, I would totally just feel like super confident." Because and before you answer that, I'll tell you mine. Like when I was in middle school, I felt that if I had a starter jacket, it would just like rocket me to the top of cool guy city. And so I saved my money and went with my mom out to buy my starter jacket, and I felt so cool until like a week later when it got washed and the sleeves that were white all turned pink. So I lived that for like a week. I was cool. So what's yours?
I don't know if I really have anything like that I really want
No.
or that's on my wish list. Like if I just happen to see something that I like or that's cute, then I'll probably get it. But I don't think there's anything on my wish list that I would
Okay.
dying to get.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about, awkward moments and stuff that happen, and not necessarily from, it's not always manners and etiquette and things like that, but middle school is definitely for most people where some of life's most awkward things have happened because it's just very awkward age and everything that we're going through. For me, I think one of my most awkward memories from middle school was kind of balancing the traditions of my parents and taking that to middle school. And one of them was, my parents really they always told me they thought I could be a country music singer. They were like, and they took me to this country western store, and basically they dressed me to look like Garth Brooks or something like that. And I had an 8th grade dance, and it was the first time I ever asked for a date. And I asked this girl to go to the dance with me, and basically that meant she was there and I showed up. It's like I didn't drive to pick her up or anything like that, but I met her, and I was dressed up literally like Garth Brooks. You might not even know who that is, but I was I had this like western shirt that was like American flag colored. It was like red, white, and blue, and these tight, Wrangler pants, and then these boots. And I I showed up, and she was like, "Why are you dressed like that?" And I was like, I felt so embarrassed. I made up a story. I was like, "Oh, we just got back from line dancing classes," which we didn't even do. I don't know why I said that, but I was so embarrassed. Looking back though, it's so funny how that felt like so permanent and so forever, and I was just never gonna live that down. Now it's an amazing story. So, I encourage you to look at life that way as well. To know, someday, no matter how bad or embarrassing it feels at the time, later on it'll become a funny story that you'll tell on a podcast. So, with that being said, I mean, do you have any funny, awkward moments or stories?
Not like that, but I think 6th grade was like the most difficult year for me or awkward year.
Yeah.
And then 7th grade was easier because nothing was really new
Mm-hmm.
because it was you already been in middle school for a year. So 7th grade was pretty easy. And then from there on out, I feel like it all went pretty smooth.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I would say, I mean, I feel like you've just you've been a rock star through middle school. But, I do know, in being your parent, that you have faced challenges. And one of the biggest challenges is, the sports team thing. It's very competitive at your school. And, making those sports teams, I know that's been a lot that is weighing on you. How do you feel? Like, are there any manners and etiquette things that may apply? Are there things that maybe the coaches or teachers or parents or, that we can do when you're facing those hardships? Some manners tips for us to kind of help you through those, being let down, because these are years where you're getting let down on certain ambitions and things that you have. But, maybe do you have some tips for us on ways that we can help you through those things?
I mean, I think just being there, and like maybe encouraging to not quit or stop and just do better next time and keep going instead of just giving up.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. And I think we try to do that. So we'll do more of that. Do you have any, kids that are coming into middle school? What's your advice for them?
I would say just be friendly and open to people, include people, and so when you see someone that doesn't look like they're new too, because everyone feels the same that you do. Everyone feels nervous and the same way going into middle school. So just try and be open and include as many people as you can, and be nice to your teachers.
Good advice. All right, Haley. So wrapping things up, one of my last questions is, if someone listening could go back and talk to their 8th grade self, what advice do you think they should give to their 8th grade self? Or, what advice should they probably ignore?
I would say if you were going back to your 8th grade self, you should just tell them to persevere, because these 3 years of middle school are very hard and everything seems very permanent, but just to keep God.
All right, that's good advice. I love it. What's one traditional etiquette that you hope survives with your generation and you hope they get better at as they grow?
I mean, probably the language we use, like saying thank you or please, and using those manners to everyone around you, your parents, your teachers, your friends, everyone, because it makes them feel good.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. No, that's great advice. You've given us a good glimpse into the life inside the mind of a middle schooler. So thank you for that. All right. Well, we're wrapping things up. So, middle school gets a bad rap. We remembered it's awkward, loud, dramatic, and uncomfortable. And sure, it is all those things. But it's also where people first start figuring out who they are, how they want to be treated, and how they're willing to treat others in return. Listening to this conversation, it's hard not to realize that manners don't disappear from one generation to the next. They just change shape. What looks like rudeness to one generation might actually be empathy in a different language. If there's truth to the idea that who we are in middle school stays with us, maybe the real takeaway isn't to judge those early traits. It's to guide them, to model kindness, to offer context, to remember that respect isn't about perfect behavior, it's about intention and awareness. So maybe the next time we're tempted to say, kids today have no manners, the better question is whether we're listening closely enough to recognize the manners they're actually practicing. Thanks for spending time with us today on Manner. Wherever you're listening from, take a second to remember your own 8th grade self and maybe offer them a little grace. Thank you so much for listening to Mannered, and thank you to Hailey Rhodes for joining us and taking us back to middle school. To all, remember, mind your manners.
Thanks for listening to the Mannered Podcast.